the book in every house, and nonconformists who didn't go were judged by their society, and parents were judged by not raising their children in a church. And yet now we have this very quickly growing nuns. Why do you think that's happening? You're all sociologists or close to sociologists. What's the answer? Okay, so we have three aspects of identifying as an atheist. The first one is, it's very much in keeping with identification and coming out as homosexual, same gender loving. Okay, we have this, I'm not here, like I'm not believing all this. Okay, I have a secret. I don't believe in God. It's real, it's not real, it's fake, it's not real. I believe it up here. And then I have to tell somebody and share with other people that, you know what, I don't believe. And to actually say that, to identify that, to get into those conversations, it can be very sticky. And why don't you believe? What happened to you? Are you sure? And come to my church, and you're going to burn in hell. And you're going to die, and I feel so sad for you. And dealing with that. And then we have going to the next level, which is being an activist atheist. And just as in there is religion that has what Amy was tapping into, spirituality and religion. You have atheists who have this belief or lack of belief, and then you have a totally different person who is a card-carrying atheist, who reads the literature, who might engage with other atheists proactively to form an identity. And that would be the third step. You can have, in terms of religion, spirituality. You know, I believe, I pray, I pay homage to my religious faith, that maybe I don't go to church all the time, maybe I don't go to Bible study or go to temple or do these things. So you can separate religion in terms of spirituality and religiosity. And here, atheists do the same thing. I've got a belief, I come out to different people, and then I participate in the active culture that is atheists. For many atheists, this is how they're living. Big giant secret. Only 3% of people identify as atheists. In a room full of 100, that's 97 people who are going to say, you're cynical, you're sad, you're depressed, you have mental health problems, you must be miserable, I don't want you around my children, you cannot be in charge of any government companies or anything else because you're potentially dangerous and you probably worship Satan and might have, have horns coming out the backside of your head. And so this is an unsafe spot for many. And so we have this tremendous reluctance to reveal. And the thing is, the reluctance to reveal isn't because they think they're wrong. It's not that they don't want to engage in a conversation to explain their beliefs. What's going on is that they don't want to be judged by everybody else. 66% of people who identify as atheist or even agnostic don't want to have a conversation with all the believers out there, because they don't want to be judged. So they will avoid this, and that's understandable. Okay. So in terms of what do we know about atheism, I will tell you that the research is not as expansive as you might imagine. There is a ton of research about religion and everything. Throw out a net, and you're going to find a ton of studies with regards to religion. What you don't find in the literature is a ton of studies about atheists. And it's a small population. They haven't historically mobilized and said, we're here and we're out as atheists and bonded with other atheists, so they've been a hard population to find. But we have found through the literature that being an atheist is a fluid kind of thing. It's not that one is like, oh, I'm atheist, like this is it. Okay, for many people it is a fluid thing, and it comes in many different pathways. The first pathway, or part of a first pathway, is to avoid the stigma, using Goffman's term here. We're going to avoid the stigma of the word atheist. I'm just questioning. I don't know. I'm not willing to say that I don't believe and that you're all wrong and crazy. I'm just going to say I'm agnostic, because it's a little less of a pejorative. We've got the whole atheist thing, we don't like that, so I'm going to be a little less offensive and I'm just going to be questioning. And everybody's like, okay, well, I get it, that's part of the faith process. You know, God challenges us, and a lot of people question. Like, that's not as threatening to the general population, somebody who might be questioning or going through a religious crisis of sorts, a lack of faith, their faith is being tested, and this is a phase. Being an agnostic is kind of like, so okay. So here we have that. Now the standard trajectory was the first trajectory figured out or written about in the literature by a man named Smith, and he said that the way it comes about is that people are raised in a dominant religious group and they come to believe this religion. So Christianity, for instance, we're a Christian nation by and large. So you come to believe, and then there's like, what? You parted the sea and everybody walked across, like, what? You went in a cave and woke up and like came back to life? Like, huh? Like, I don't know, like, I don't think so. There's a period of doubt. Like, it just does not make sense. Eventually, the person who was raised religious has their doubt, and they come to the conclusion that, no. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know why I believed it, but I did, and it just, where's God now? Whatever, maybe it's a crisis, but they come to the point of not believing, and then they come out as an atheist. That would be the standard trajectory. But we've got a couple deviations. Okay, more literature, more studying upon this, more surveys, trying to figure out what else can happen. So the first one is somebody's born into a religious household. Got two pathways here. Start out raised a believer, but they had doubts in the beginning. Atheist, this isn't real. Then they have a crisis. Has anybody ever had a crisis? I mean, you can have all kinds of crises. Please don't let me be pregnant. Please don't let me be pregnant. Like, crisis of faith, maybe a loss of job, maybe an illness, maybe an accident, and then where's God? God, please come help me now. God comes or doesn't. And then we're right back to like, oh, like I was just in a little crisis. Like, seriously, it's not real. And like, I'm still an atheist. Okay, so they have this bumpy road. They know they're supposed to believe, they don't believe, something happens, everybody rallies around, they believe again, sort of, they get through it, and then they're right back to like, nah. Second one, they're raised to be a believer, but these people start out as kids, like, no. There's a magical guy in the sky looking down on me, and like, we lie to our kids all the time. We've got the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and Santa, and kids have all of these different beliefs with them. And for some children, at their point of view, like, I know I'm supposed to believe. I know that I'm being taught to believe. I know that this is the message I'm being given, but it's a lot of bullshit. Like, it's not real. I just don't believe it. And so even though they have all this pressure upon them and their socialization is very religious, they say from their point of view they were never a believer. Like, I was schooled in it, I know about the religious doubt, but like, I just never believed. Okay, so now we have the people who were never raised in a religious family. And as the nuns are rising, with 1/5 being nuns and 33% being unaffiliated, you have a lot of children whose parents, if you ask them, are you, oh yeah, I believe in God. Like, are you religious? No. Like, and their kids are not raised in a religious household. So being spiritual is extremely different than being religious. So you have children raised with potentially highly spiritual parents who are not raising their children in a religion. And so from the kids' point of view, they're not being raised in a religious viewpoint, and so they never believed. They weren't taught through the lens of any particular religious faith that this is how the world works. So they never adopted a faith, and they're just straight out born atheist because they never had that socialized towards them. And the last one is no religion, no God, and that message that atheists are missing something, that there's a bigger picture out there, that there's a larger meaning to life, that there's something richer beyond them is out there, and they get a message from society repeatedly that they're part of something greater. So they start out a non-believer, and they're like, I'm going to go find God. Whatever God or whatever religion that is, I need to go find it because I'm clearly missing something. I'm going to be happier. I'm going to understand things more. Everything's going to, somehow there's this magic beanstalk to God, and my life will be richer and more fulfilling. And they go to try to find God. And what happens? They're going along, and they're not markedly happier. They're not able to hear anything that makes them believe. And they're like, okay, well, yeah, no, it's not real. I didn't believe in the beginning. I tried, I gave it a shot, and it's all kind of a load of nonsense. Dawkins is a famous atheist. He's written several books about this topic. This is a scale, again, reminding you that the identity of an atheist is very fluid. On any given day, you could feel very strongly and then see a beautiful sunset and have some doubt. How could this world be created as beautifully and majestically as it is as an accident? How do we have the amazing and wonderful things that we have and it's simply random? And so you may have some doubt as an atheist one day. And then on other times, no, I want to have a belief. I want to believe something because that makes me feel better. But the bottom line is, no, there's nothing. It is random, I can't explain it. And then the agnostic kind of thing fits in there. So we have this scale. Another fluid look at this in terms of where you're at, how completely you are immersed in this, and how much you're willing to share, and how strong your belief is. So one area that the literature has looked at is deciding if atheism is a religion. What do you think? Everybody else? Okay, I have somebody like, no. I have 3 people, yes. Why would we argue that it's not a religion?
It's the absence of religion.
It's the absence of God. Like, if there is no God, how could you have a religion? You're not paying homage to something else. Like, how is that a religion in that way?
Well, the beliefs that there is no God is pretty similar to the beliefs that there is.
So we have that. Yes, we do. Okay? So some argue no, for the same reasons you do. Okay? Here are some laughable examples. Bald is not a hair color. You know, not liking golf is not a sport. You know, you can't create a religion. Religions, from a sociological point of view, have beliefs, values, symbols, rituals. It's a thing. Like, you don't just call going to the Dodger game a religion. That's not a religion. Like, there has to be these kind of things that surround our view of what constitutes a religion. And the argument here is that it's not. Okay. Oh. From this group of atheists, you have new atheism, and this is new within the last couple of decades. And the belief that, I don't know how many, I know I have a group of sociologists here. Do you guys all remember what Karl Marx said about religion? What's his quote? It's the opiate
for the masses.
Yep. It dumbs your senses and makes you an idiot willing to go along with everything. He didn't say all that, but basically he did, right? It numbs people. And there are groups of politically bent atheists who believe that religion causes world wars, it causes justified reactions towards things, it's been used to justify murder and racism and sexism and all kinds of isms that are not good, and it hurts people. And new atheists want this to stop. Okay, they feel like religion in some ways should be purged from social institutions. And we have separation of church and state, but a new atheist would say we have not gone far enough to separate. It's still far too entrenched and enmeshed, and that not being a religion, we should not tolerate religion in certain spheres, and in fact we should counteract it. So you will have different efforts to remove crosses and symbols from certain artifacts. You will have efforts to remove opening prayers from things that may have had an opening prayer for the last 5 million years. We've always opened with a prayer, like that's what you do. They're saying no, that you can't have any religion in all of these kinds of things because it's damaging. Some argue yes. Okay. We will have those who feel that atheism is a belief structure that has a concrete foundation. It is something that unites people. It is something that needs protected because of all of the angst and the potential discrimination and the feelings against atheists. Religious freedom here is freedom of religion, and from their point of view, freedom from religion is kind of a mixed thing here. Here's what we have happening right now, and I was surprised by this I'm not a religious studies person, but I stumbled across this about 6 months ago, the idea that there were atheist churches. What? Huh? Like, I had aspired to believe that, I was worried that atheists would have maybe a lack of meaning, and that non-congregating, that the church provides a whole lot of norming and socialization and latent functions in our society, and if that erodes and isn't replaced with something, what does that mean for the evolution of our society? And that's a concern from a sociological point of view. It's glue. Religion is glue. Okay? Now, atheists might think the glue is crazy glue. It doesn't make sense. It's not good, but it's glue nonetheless. It keeps society's structures in place, and that is really good. And with the nuns on the rise, what does that mean for society? Well, the nuns want collective identity. They want to share their cognitive, emotional, and lack of spiritual belief with other people. And another term for agnostic that is more palatable is humanist. I believe in taking care of the environment. I believe in being a good person. I believe in treating people with respect. I believe in equality. It's all everything that religion would say that's good, atheists are saying, yes, I believe in all of that. And I want to share that with other people. I'm not a bad person. I don't believe in crime and doing bad things and destroying everything. I want the same thing as a religious person. I'm just not doing it in the name of God. I'm doing it because it's the right thing. I'm morally convicted by my cognitive belief that this is the right thing to do. And they want to get together and share. So we have a growth of churches here that are taking place. There's there's conferences that are taking place for atheists. There are online, I'm guessing there's online churches. I haven't done a lot of research there. But there are actual churches that have sprung up all throughout the United States and Europe that are celebrating atheism and bringing people together. And it's not that it's not bashing a religion. It's not everybody coming together, oh, they're all so stupid, and this is why it's wrong, and that's why it's wrong, and we're all right, and sharing in their lack of faith so much as, what could a bunch of people who believe in humanity, who believe in the environment, who believe in good morals, what could we do collectively to make the world better? And so they're coming together in that regard. In terms of future research, I noticed a few things that were missing from the research that I think would be good to research. So if you're all looking for a topic, study this. One of the reasons it says 66% of people don't disclose because they don't want to be looked down upon. They don't want any negativity there. But I think there are other reasons. Number one, I think they want access to religious-based institutions. If you have kids, you know that preschool is expensive. Preschool at the church is much less expensive. Okay, there are summer camps for kids. Church camp, inexpensive. Regular camp, twice the price. There are reasons why people may not disclose, which have nothing to do with not wanting to have a conversation or not be looked down upon. I want the resources that this religious network has developed. That's a good thing. There's co-ops, there's Moms Club, there's MOPS, There's many different groups and organizations and fellowship and outreach, and people want that. Maybe they don't want to go to an atheist church for that, but they want the fellowship, and they want somebody to bring them a lasagna when they break their leg. You know, they want that camaraderie that comes from religion. So they're not going to say anything because they want to tap into those resources. Number two, I think they want to avoid conflict. Because the bottom line is, an atheist thinks that those who are theists are wrong. And you can't really have a conversation about why do I believe in atheism without having a conversation about why you're an idiot. Okay, you can say it nicely, you can make it palatable, I just don't believe, but at some point in time, there is that conversation of, okay, so you believe this, okay, you believe in this imaginary thing, and you believe this. Have you guys heard of the spaghetti monster?
Yes.
Okay, so having that conversation with a devout religious person, the spaghetti monster is the belief that there is a big pile of spaghetti and floats in the sky, and it's a metaphor for religion. And you know, when we talk about God, it has this strength and I don't know the right word. It's awesomeness, it's awe. And if we change out the word God and put in something ludicrous like spaghetti monster and say the exact same things, people are like, that's stupid, like spaghetti monster, and yet it's the exact same description of any particular religion, and you just transpose in the word spaghetti monster. And so when you have this conversation from atheist to theist, and you start describing that you believe these things totally based on faith, and this is the same thing, why isn't the Easter Bunny real? Why isn't, you know, and you start having all these conversations, it can cause a lot of friction. Huge amounts of friction. And given that, you know, 97% of people are going to be religiously affiliated or not willing to say they're atheists, that means a lot of friction with family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, and potential for a stigma to be attached to somebody and having that interfere with all their relationships. They don't want to offend and alienate others. That's different than conflict. I know people who don't mind conflict at all. They're all happy to tell you you're an idiot, that you believe in a spaghetti monster, and that it's not real. Okay, but then there are those who really don't want to offend. Okay, and telling somebody that their entire belief system is not true and that they are naive for believing it in the absence of any proof can be very hurtful. And so I think people don't want to offend other people engaging in this conversation as well. Another aspect of future research is to look at the overlapping relationship between the intersections of gender, race, finances, etc. on atheism. Historically, the data supports that atheists tend to be older white men with a lot of money and a lot of education. And the question is why? Okay, the lower, the higher one, as one's education goes up, so does lack of theism. Okay? So is it that education, more scientifically based, debunks religious stuff? Or is it that as you increase your finances, you don't have the same needs or stressors that might, as Marx would say, need to be dumbed down by some opium, and your life is better. You don't have to feel the need to define your life by religion. What is going on? Because something is clearly happening that this particular group is more likely to be atheist. Because Caucasians are highly into the whole religious thing too. In terms of religion and the data about religions, it's not that Caucasians are less religious than Hispanics or blacks or all of the different Asian groups. So something is happening here. And I think that would be worthy of a lot more research to find out exactly what's happening. How are these variables related to atheism and the increase of the nuns and the coming out process? So that concludes my synopsis of what I've learned about atheism. Again, it's not original research. I can't tell you about my variables, and I can't tell you about my research methodology, but I could answer questions based on my knowledge if you have any, and I'm happy to share what I've learned if
I actually have two.
bring it.
Yeah, okay. First, to answer that last question, or at least pose an idea anyways, it would seem to me that that makes a whole lot of sense, actually, because you're highly educated, white, wealthy, older male, right, typically already have very large support systems, right, to where other folks, right, and you go further down the hierarchy, right, they have less support typically within other institutions, but religion might be one of those things that really provides a whole lot of, really useful and good stuff to them. So, I don't know.
There's a bigger cost
Right.
to not adopting the faith and being part of that circle.
Of course, right. And also, I think it might be interesting to put Marx in conversation with Durkheim on this, because a lot of it I can see in terms of totemism, right? Where you're still attaching yourself to something, right? And using that symbol of nothingness, right? As a way to organize, as a way to have conversations or not have conversations, stuff like that, right? But everybody's recognizing these different totems, right, of the other.
And there's a huge movement. It's slow and it's subtle, but there's a huge movement taking place in our country to embrace the totem of non-belief and to organize and to not be left out of the fabric of all these movements. And there's a lot of movements to do good in our country, and atheists have kind of been on the periphery because they don't belong to groups of people that do move forward. They want to be included. So let's, come up with a space, and let's come up with an agenda. It's not a sermon. Let's come up with an agenda, and let's come up with a project, and we're all going to work together. And the thing that brings them all together is the lack of belief and faith.
I was wondering if, I don't know if there's any research or if you know anything about, one thing I've been seeing lately, kind of an antagonism between atheists and new atheists.
Oh, there's a huge antagonism there. Yes, okay, so there's a divide in terms of geography that is it's subtle, but it's there. In the United States, we've kind of been a little more, I want to say it's the United States. I could be mixing it up. It's the United States versus Canada. I could have them wrong. Okay? One is very much, there is no God. God does not exist. Therefore, it's not a religion. And then you have, I want to say the Canadians are saying, but we need protected. We want access to space. We want access to freedom of this belief. We don't want to be discriminated. And there is a desire to have legal protection. So would you want to be fired from your boss for finding out that you're atheist? That is not protected under the law. The law protects for age and race and sexual orientation and religion, but if we're arguing that atheism is not a religion, then I can fire you, right? So there's that, and so that totally juxtaposes with the atheism is not a religion. So you have various opposing views there. One is very strong, we're not a religion. And calling it a religion is absolutely ludicrous, and we need to move forward and just kind of get rid of this. And then there's this other group who wants to pull everybody together, wants to go on social movements, and wants to be protected and not judged. And these are very much opposed right now.
Well, I was also thinking about more of the live and let live atheists versus new atheists who are actively.
Most people are the live and let live atheists.
Yeah.
Most people don't go to the third step. Okay, the research shows that I'm an atheist, and I might come out to my friends and family. And then, but the whole card carrying, getting involved, reading the literature, spreading the word, that is a huge step. And there is conflict there because the ones that are activists, the ones that are getting involved with the ACLU and other entities to remove religion and to fight for rights, is looking at the other group like, what the heck? Like, where are you? I'm like, you need to join, and there's not that need, I think, from a lot of atheists to be involved. Like, it's too costly, potentially, I think, to get involved and be labeled and judged, and people don't want to deal with that.
I was thinking that was, like, I know have that support, but it's also a lot about whether or not the religion allows you to decide things for yourself, to read for yourself, to explore for yourself. Going back to the favorite.
That would be an awesome another thing to discover, because I didn't see in the literature anything that supports that. Not that it's not there, because I'm sure there's parts of it there, but in terms of the 4 pathways or 5 pathways, that's almost like new. That's in like 2011, 2012, 2013. So the fact that differentiating the 2 pathways that grew up religion and then splitting those out into various religions, I don't think that's happened yet. If it did, I haven't seen it yet.
No, I haven't thought about it either. I'm just sort of hypothesizing.
Yeah.
And along with that, I think that if you are coming from, like if you're a 2nd or 3rd generation immigrant, not a 1st generation, because you're going to need the props of your connection back home, you're going to need the support if you're coming into, not say Latin countries where your mother would be, but if you're coming from the East, if you're coming from an animist culture, if you're coming from somewhere that has a very, very different cultural background, then I think after the 1st generation, when you get into the 2nd and 3rd generations, you're going to be less connected to the back home,
Right.
and you're also less connected to the Christianity and Catholicism that are common here. So I think you're more likely to maybe, in that perspective, be aware, be less locked into it, and more willing to question it. So just looking at that, and I also think that if there's something like the Station or some sort of animism thing where you believe that the spirit is all around you, and it's in the trees and the water and the earths and all these other beliefs that are more, indigenous or Eastern typically, I think that's going to also give you a little bit of protection, because that's something that's everywhere. It's not about believing in one thing, it's about believing in an entire world system. And so I think that's why we need to get a little bit less likely to this. But that's just, I don't know, I'm just guessing.
I would
There's nothing
imagine that
about
with the
any of
research,
this, but the statistics say that you're more likely from
and also to complicate everything is just the outing process. Even though it is research, there's dangers in answering questions a certain way. I mean, I'm sure that research tries to protect the anonymity and the confidentiality of research subjects, but even though that is guarded, I think given the beliefs about atheists, I imagine that there's still a lot of people who themselves don't want to adopt that term because they've internalized that sense of rejection and would rather go with agnostic or turn towards a more spiritual view of the whole world because it's not a rejection, but like that might be a transition. So they can still call themselves spiritual and religion without adopting that label. And I'm sure the research doesn't account for that. That's not even really in here, that they take a detour because that's still theist, still belief. So that isn't even one of the, well, obviously it's not there because your endpoint isn't atheism. So we have a different trajectory. Do I have any more questions? Oh, here, gentlemen.
Yeah, so you mentioned that atheists are typically just as happy as people who are religious.
Those who are strong in their convictions, yes.
So I was wondering about agnostics. Are they?
No.
They're not happy.
No, it's not that they're unhappy, but